All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to open up this regular city council meeting. We have Mayor Hill and Councilman McPartland. They're on Zoom. Do we have them?
Mr. McPartland is on Zoom. Mr. Hill is not joined.
He's
Okay.
excused tonight.
I'm here, Mr. Jones.
Was that Bob?
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. So I stand corrected. Mr. Hill is not there yet. So right now, I'd like for everyone to stand for a moment of silence, and then after that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Okay. Mayor Hill is excused tonight. Vice Mayor Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Councilmember McPartland.
Here.
And Councilmember Nunn.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, council, do we have any modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, we're going to move forward to proclamations, tab number 6. We don't have anything, but what I'd like to do right now is to recognize, tonight we have with us a group of young men from the Heart and Soul Foundation. I had them up earlier prior to the meeting and took them around the building. So I'd like for those guys to stand up and be recognized. So, Mr. Hart, if you'd like to say a word or two, that would be fine. I think we'd like to hear something so people know what Heart and Soul Foundation is.
Good evening. My name is Donald Hart. I'm the founder and CEO of Heart and Soul Youth Foundation. Heart and Soul Youth Foundation is a male-only mentor program. We have the age from 10 to 18 years of age. And we, like I said, we go into the schools and mentor. Vice Mayor Fred Jones is one of my mentors with the program. And we try to, like we did tonight, bring them in and let them get opportunity to understand how government runs. We're going to be doing a lot more things like this in the future with the boys, but it is a mentor program for boys only. Thank you all for having us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Councilmember Nunn, can you read the brief announcements for us?
Yeah. All right, so a couple brief announcements tonight. Thursday, June 30th, we're going to have an informational workshop for the Graves Brothers annexation. This will be our second workshop here in the chambers, June 30th from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Our second announcement is July 4th, Freedom Festival. So July 4th, the parade's going to start at 8:30 a.m. Vendors, food, kids, activities, and music in the Riverview Park all day long. Fireworks that night at 9 p.m. We are still taking applications for if you want to be in the parade, that you can get out here in our lobby. So if you have somebody interested in joining the parade, please come on out. We would love to have you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mr. Nunn. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on any item that's not before us tonight? Please step forward, give your name and where you live. Come on up.
Good evening, council members, and I would just like to...
What's your name, ma'am?
Oh, my name is Abigail Sullivan, and I live in Sebastian. I would like to express my gratitude for the workshop you all have put on last Thursday and the Thursday coming up for the workshop for the Graves Brothers annexation in Sebastian. I appreciate all the things that the staff have done and brought forward and answering questions and things like that. It's been very instrumental in listening to the citizens' input. I think that's very important, and to see what they would like to see done with that annexed property. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Moving forward, consent agenda. Council, what's your pleasure?
I move approval of consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
I think you got
Second.
a little delay there, Bob. Sorry for
Oh,
that.
sorry.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No. Nope.
Mr. McPartland?
None.
Nope. Call the vote, voice vote. Jeanette?
Okay. Vice Mayor
All in
Jones?
favor, say aye.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
I do have one, Mr. Vice
Nunn.
Mayor. Was able to attend the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting today down in Vero with the Indian River County. Great meeting, discussed a lot of things, a lot of good things coming. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and this will hopefully help our citizens, and I encourage you, if you know somebody that's in this situation. So the SHIP and SHARP programs have funds available for emergency septics, roofs, and plumbing. So if you know somebody out there that's having issues with their plumbing, because we know the plumbing, we'll just call it widespread problem going on right now, they have money to help people with that qualify for the program. So that's emergency septic issues, roofs, and plumbing issues. So please contact the SHIP office in Indian River County, and I'm going to try to get some of that stuff up on the our Sebastian page with that information. So was just told we have some of it up there already, but if you know somebody that's in a financial situation going through one of those three things, please let them know. On the other side of that, they also have right now $40,000 towards a new home purchase or a renovated home purchase that they will give you as a grant. From what I heard today, PNC has like another $10,000 or $15,000 to add to that. Plus they have other programs. So if someone is looking to buy a house, I know prices aren't great right now. There's a lot of money in the SHIP program still that you can apply for and be able to get that. That's available for anybody in Indian River County. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McPartland, do you have anything?
Oh, I was just wondering, the qualification, is that 200% of poverty level? Or is that anybody for any of those programs that were mentioned?
Is that 200% of poverty level, or is it anybody?
It's median income.
Okay. The median income of Indian River County, or?
Median income of Indian River County, which the median income of Indian River County, I learned today, is like $72,000 roughly. Surprises me that the number's that high, but that makes 60% of that pretty easy for most people, so.
You have anything else, Mr. McPartland? Mr. Dodd?
No, sir.
No, sir? All right. Anything else? Any other committee reports? Not, we don't have public hearing, none there. Unfinished business, nothing. Now we move forward to, under new business, approve the Sebastian Area Historical Society's request to initiate historical marker application by the Florida Department of Transportation. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, they came to us and asked to put up a historical marker at the cemetery. The Parks family that owned the property originally was where our cemetery is now, allowed people to bury their loved ones on their property. They set aside some acreage, and that is what our cemetery is today. If we didn't have that, we don't know what we would have for a cemetery here in the city. So they've asked to reach out to get a historical marker, put it on that corner of the property where the Parks plot is, and to designate that area and the significance of it to the history and to the future of Sebastian.
Council, any questions? Now, do we need to, can we just move this forward with the consensus from the council? Or do we need
You're
to
gonna
actually
need,
take a vote?
you need to take a motion and a vote because
Okay.
Yeah.
we have a policy on historical markings, and they'll need that.
I'll make a motion to approve this request.
Second?
Second.
Any questions from council? None?
No.
All in favor signify aye.
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 And opposed? None, motion passed. 4-0. Okay, the next thing on our,
Mr. Vice Mayor,
yes.
all of the Historical Society board members are here. Did you guys want to say anything?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, no.
They might
Kathy,
wanna-
Yeah, I'm sorry, if you want to come up, absolutely.
Well, you come up with good news.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for having us here. Obviously, there's a number of members here that are from the Sebastian Area Historical Society that came, and we certainly appreciate your support in this matter. But I would also like to introduce Joan Park Valentine, the great-granddaughter of August Park. Joan, could you please stand up? It's so wonderful to have someone that was directly related to the family, and so very proud of the wonderful reputation that her great-grandfather left and set the example for people moving to the Sebastian area, that you would open up your house and your home and have new settlers stay right with you until they were able to go ahead and get a setup for their own families and things. So we really respect the high bar that August Park set for the settlers of Sebastian, and it's a legacy we need to continue as we move forward in the city of Sebastian. Thank you very much again for your approval.
Yes, ma'am, thank you so much. Okay, council, next item on the agenda is a first reading of ordinance number O-22-08. Mr. City Attorney, can you please read?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Okay, this is the first reading for ordinance number 22-08, and it reads, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, amending Code of Ordinance, Chapter 18, Animals, Article 2, to prohibit roosters and exempt approved agricultural operations, providing for severability and repeal of the law in conflict, providing for codification, providing for scrivener's error, providing for an effective date.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, do you have anything to say?
I do, Vice Mayor. We had a couple residents come to the city council meeting during public input and discuss the challenges that they were having with roosters crowing and how disruptive it was to their lifestyle. And we had presented some options regarding using the nuisance code to try to manage that. But it was my understanding council wanted direction to prohibit roosters. And so staff has developed this ordinance that would not allow roosters, still allow two fowl, but not roosters. And with that, I'd open it up for any questions or comments or concerns council may have on moving this forward or not.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carlisle. So if the reason we're here tonight on this is because of a noisy rooster or so, right? Why couldn't a noise ordinance be used to remedy that situation, and was it tried?
It has been tried. No one has ever gone to the magistrate over it. There's been self-compliance from what Deputy Chief Witt said. I had an in-depth conversation with Deputy Chief this morning. The challenge is if we allow roosters, in his opinion, it's very difficult to enforce it. So in an example that he used, if the crew, or I used, and he gave me his representation on that, if the rooster's crowing at daylight, 6:30 in the morning, and they call the code enforcement officer shows up and the rooster's not crowing, there is no violation. So they would have to, are we good? So the problem is trying to enforce an intermittent, yet a nuisance that's intermittent and not consistent. So roosters are going to crow, and the officers are going to have to dance around the time of when the rooster crows at night or in the morning, and what an impact that has on the neighbors. So his concern was allowing roosters are going to crow. What do we do when the rooster's crowing and the officer shows up and they're not crowing? So how much time and effort do we spend on chasing this one or two roosters that happen to be in the neighborhoods and the impact they're having on others? It's no different than and then the other side of that coin is no different than a barking dog. You know, if the dog is barking and it's a nuisance and the officer shows up and the dog's not barking, it becomes a challenge. We're not going to ban dogs. I've surely hope we wouldn't. But the thing is the rooster is not it's not common in residential neighborhoods, and so it's just how do we want to handle it, and it's purely up to the discretion of council, and we'll do what we can to try to enforce it.
Right, yeah, so I get that, and some of my research when I was looking into this is there's not a large number of complaints of roosters within the city, right?
No, sir. The number of complaints have been minimal. I think we've had, and I don't know the number, I think the city attorney might have the number, like 250.
About 4?
Well, I think there was 4 documented. There may have been more, but there were 4 that were actually, I think there were 4 that were actually documented.
Right.
That we can prove. And they came into voluntary compliance.
Good, yeah, so, one of the other things that I was, thinking about is, how are we going to enforce that? If this ordinance goes into effect tonight, are we gonna actively, as a city, seek out people that have roosters? I just want everyone to know what's going to happen.
So it cannot go into effect tonight because it takes a second reading.
Right.
So after the second reading, our plan was if they got a rooster complaint, code enforcement would go out there, address the rooster complaint, and make them come into compliance with the ordinance, which would be they would have to remove the rooster from the property. So we wouldn't go out and seek them out. It would be on a complaint basis, just like with any other code. The roosters would not be, if the code passes on its second reading without any modifications or with modifications, staff would direct council or code enforcement. If they received a complaint, the rooster's not allowed, they would have to remove the rooster from the property at that point.
Right, so, yeah, so we're definitely, if it's passed on the second reading, we're definitely not gonna be seeking out. That would only be triggered by a couple of things. One is a complaint, and there is no more anonymous complaints. So, or a code enforcement official actually observes a violation of
Correct.
that. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
All right, yes, sir.
I have a question,
Mr.
Mr.
Nunn?
President. Is there any grandfathering in for people that already own roosters?
So one of the things that we had talked back and forth about was doing maybe a sunset, so you could keep the rooster for 6 months, then you had to get rid of it. And, you know, the discussion between staff, the attorney, and myself was handle it as a code compliant. When you talk about grandfathering in or continuance of a non-conforming use, how do you know they didn't replace the rooster with another rooster? How do you know if the same rooster was there 6, 8 months ago? So you know, the continuing use, you get the same, you have this continuing use that would never end because this is a magic rooster, it's lived for 100 years. Yeah, I just don't know how you would manage that process.
Mr. Dodd? Nothing?
The great rooster debate of Sebastian.
Wait a minute, before I get to you, Bob, do you have anything on that?
At least now I know we're not going to go on a rooster hunt around. So,
Yeah, right.
I call foul.
You know, if I understand it in my conversation with the city attorney, is there several of the municipalities around us do the same thing. They don't allow roosters in the municipality. Palm Bay, I think, was one, and there's several others that don't do that. You know, I know for a couple of residents who raised the complaints, this is very important. Sounds trivial, but it's important to them. And since there's other municipalities who do this, you know, and you know, we're not going to be overly obtrusive in how we try to infect this. I don't have any real objections to it. So,
Yeah.
I would say that we give our code enforcement officers the means by which they can enforce an issue with a bad rooster. So.
Right. Mr. McPartland?
I got no problem with you getting rid of the roosters, but it's the one that's existing now. So there would have to be a complaint made, and then you're saying you got to get rid of that one.
Correct.
And
that's what it's saying.
that one, I would rather deal with that through a noise ordinance, because that's kind of hard, because it's like we made this law for that rooster. And I think that could get us into a legal quandary down the road. I'd rather that one rooster that existed before this law takes effect, if it does, is handled through the magistrate, rather than saying, you got to go euthanize it or eat it.
Can I, Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So the
Go ahead.
challenge with that is how do we know the rooster was there? You would have to do a registration process. And how would you know that rooster was there before the ordinance or after the ordinance? So I'm just trying to walk through the logistics, we had one resident that had 34 chickens, and they voluntarily gave them away to get down to the 2. But at what point how do you determine when that rooster was there? How do you determine if they replaced a rooster or not? I guess is my challenge. I guess we could figure out a banding or tagging process and voluntary licensing, but I think that gets into too much, we'd be spending all of our time on that, and I'm just not sure how we would do that.
Right. Thank you for that. But for those people out there, and there are some that have roosters, and I can tell you, one told me one time, not too long ago, because we haven't been talking about this too long, that they have a rooster collar that prevents your rooster from crowing too loud. And I thought that was crazy, but I listened to them, and I was smart enough to actually go and look it up myself, and there is such a thing. So I'm just telling everybody out there, if this thing passes after the second reading, if you have a rooster, you better make sure you don't get a complaint for your neighbors.
So,
Chris.
I have one other thing. Raised chickens one time. I think we had about 50 chickens at one time. And it's funny because chickens, when they don't have roosters around, start crowing like roosters. So you can have chickens that actually make sounds that sound just like a rooster. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes down the road. Yeah. I am not a fan, by the way, of making an ordinance because 4 people had a problem with their neighbor's rooster. So as I bring it back to a serious level, I think it's bad governing to create a law or an ordinance because 4 people have complained in how many years?
2 years.
Listen, we have RVs, boats, everything else sitting all over the place that could be dealt with inside of our city, many other issues that could be dealt with. And I'm not for creating an ordinance for 4 complaints in however many years it's been. Just my personal opinion. Just my 2 cents. Want to let the public talk?
So, are there any other comments from council? Now, if we don't get a motion in a second, this thing fails, so.
Public comment.
Do we have anyone from the public who would like to talk about this? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I really didn't have any intention of saying anything, but Patty Sullivan, Sebastian, proper. So just wanted to share a little bit about, my husband grew up in New York. I grew up in Kansas. I mean, that was like 2 cultures clashing. And in our neighborhood in Sebastian, I've often heard a rooster in the morning. And to me, it's an amazing sound. Because I grew up in a place where, there was a freedom to be able to do that, whether we were, I had a farm. And so, yeah, we live in neighborhoods and things like that. I think we do need to focus more on things that are true violations. And my one thought about that would be, are these complaints coming from families with children? Or are they coming from people who've moved to lovely Sebastian to retire or something like that? So choices are made, but certain people like things, certain people don't, and that's understood. And if there's 4 complaints, I think maybe just take some time to pull back, see how many complaints there have been in how many years, like Councilman Nunn said, and then take some time to allow other things to be looked at that are true, proper violations that are going on as far as code enforcement. I see a lot of, like somebody said, RVs or cars parked all over front yards and all kinds of things like that that really, truly could be considered nuisances to a neighborhood and to values of properties and those types of things. And maybe find a creative way to address the noise factor. There may be things that people can do to help. I don't know if they can address issues of keeping roosters from crowing. There might be something surgical that they could do or something like that. So to see an ordinance over something like this, I think, our time can be spent focused on more things like that. When we get nitpicking people's personal property and life and those issues, those are issues of liberty for me. So it would be concerning for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else? You couldn't get anyone to roll you up there?
But you're
I
walking.
would have.
But you're walking.
Yep. You're walking.
I am walking, yes, now, thank you.
Very good. And tell us your name, ma'am.
My name's Mary McGee, and I'm an old farmer, but I can tell you that if you go out and buy your chickens at Tractor Supply, they sex them for you, so you don't have to worry about whether you're getting a rooster or a hen. And I want to know what the limit is for the hens here. And that's my questions. Okay?
I believe that the answer is 2.
I thought it was 4.
No, ma'am, it's 2 for a hen.
4 hens?
2.
2 hens. It's not enough. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else?
Good evening. My name's Tony. 2 hens to what? Quarter of an acre, half an acre, 1 house, 1 person? What does that mean?
That's a great question.
I mean, 2 chickens, excuse me. 2 chickens to what?
1 household?
1 residential unit.
Right.
So 1 residential unit on a quarter of an acre, on an acre, it doesn't matter if you have an acre. You're only allowed 2
Yes, ma'am, in the city. Correct.
within the city.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else like to speak? All right, before we move any further, I'd just like to say, no matter which way this thing comes out tonight, and no matter what, if you have an animal that your neighbors are complaining about, just try to be respectful and handle things in that manner. So things like that don't come before us. Just be good neighbors. And that's all I have to say. Mr. Nunn?
Can I make a motion to not approve this resolution?
I don't.
Or would we just not call haven't done
You can make
this.
a motion to deny it.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this resolution.
Second.
And for clarification, the ordinance,
The
said
ordinance.
The ordinance, I apologize.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance number,
02208.
02208, sorry. it was
02208.
confused there.
And there is a second. Any other discussion? Mr. McPartland,
No.
call the vote. Jeanette?
Okay, Councilmember Dodd,
Yeah, yes.
Councilmember McPartland,
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn,
Yes.
and Vice Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
All right. So now we're going to go ahead and move forward. Next thing on our agenda is, where is it?
Now, a suggestion on that last one, since we only have 2 hens per resident, maybe we need 1 resident to have a rooster and just share it around.
the problem with that is if the person that has the 2 hens lays eggs and they hatch, they're in violation of our current ordinance.
Okay.
Okay.
We're on
next-
12C, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Sir, C, item C, update on policies and regulations of the city's boards and committees. First reading ordinance number O-22-09. Mr. Nunn.
Okay, yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, this is the first reading for ordinance 22-09. We're amending the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance. In addition, we're setting a public hearing for July 13th, 2022. And the ordinance reads, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, amending the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Boards, Commission, Committee, Division 7, Veteran Advisory Board, amending Section 2-253, repealed, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's error, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. City Attorney. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, members of council, these came about, it's time that we update our council and board's charge. All these next four ordinances that will have the same explanation. They're just to clear up some language within the policies, procedures of the boards. They have to be done by ordinance. So as we go through each one of these title ordinances, the reason is because it's time to update those. So if we want to move along with that, we can go through that. But each one of those, they're pretty much the same. It just specifically addresses their different boards and committees.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Council, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, I just want to let everybody know that these 5 ordinances that are following are all related to the revision that our city clerk and city attorney have done to this book, which is the handbook for City of Sebastian, Florida boards, commissions, committees, and members of those. It includes in it, and this is not a new document, we had this, they just updated it. It includes in it the rules and regulations under which all these boards operate, includes in it agendas for their meetings and so forth. This first item under number C, O-22-09, is actually reactivating the Veterans Advisory Board, which our city attorney found in his research had sunsetted and no one knew it. We didn't even know it was sunsetted, so it's a reactivation of that board. But this is it's a very important piece of housekeeping because it's the way that these boards, some of them have state mandated requirements. It's the way they operate, and it's the way that the citizens keep the city operational. Because quite frankly, without these boards and commissions, the city wouldn't be able to operate very well.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
that's all
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nunn?
No, I'm good.
None?
No.
Mr. McPartland?
I mean, seeing we're looking at all these boards, I know, that these volunteer boards work differently than the city council boards. But at the back end of the agenda, I would like to see something referencing the procedures for because they don't have necessarily public input, but they do have a section for public comment at each of those meetings. And if it could just outline like it does on the back of our agenda, the time limit, the input is to be directed to the chair, and certain remarks that are prohibited.
Okay, can I respond to that?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Dyer. Where did you see that at first of all?
It's on I think page 5 is the beginning of that. But the boards that this revision took a general purpose public comment section away because those boards have very specific points. The Planning and Zoning Commission board, for example, is a board that hears under state law, basically quasi-judicial and public hearings related to growth management and zoning issues. There is no place within the planning and zoning structure for citizens to come in and discuss things that aren't on that agenda because the board's not authorized to talk about things that aren't on that agenda. And so if a citizen wants something introduced to the Planning and Zoning Commission for some reason, then they should bring that either to the Growth Management Department or the city manager. They can do that through our Citizens Advisory Input forms that we have. They can do that various different ways. But the actual Planning and Zoning Board, the Police Pension Board, the local planning agency, those are very pointed and very specific boards. They have a responsibility under state statute to do certain things, and they're really not designed to try to address things like why is there a pothole in our streets. And that's the kind of public input that you get when you bring those boards together. So I don't think it's an attempt to reduce public input because there will be public input on every item that they bring up. But it's an attempt to say that a general open public input section is not consistent with the objective of that board.
Okay. Is that it for you, Mr. McPartland?
No, whatever. That's all I have. It's just I know, sometimes in the past we've had boards where something happened, and then it's, I just figured if we're doing the rules for all these boards, might as well do it now if there's no, and it's rare that it does happen, but it has happened in the past.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Council, what's your pleasure? Yep.
I'd like to move approval of item CI, which is resolution O-2209, which will approve the Veterans Advisory Council.
Second. There, any further
just
comments?
point-
Okay, anyone from
point
the
of order.
public
Point
would
of
like
order.
to speak?
If I can, just point of order. You
Yes.
need
Point
to add
what?
also in set for the public hearing July 13th. I didn't hear that.
Okay. To set a second public hearing on July the 13th.
Okay, so we just make sure we got that in, read into it. Okay, so we have that, motion, and I'll second that, to add that. Any further comments? Anybody from the public would like to speak to this? Seeing none, is there anybody on, Zoom from the public that would like to speak on this?
Nobody has raised their hand.
Okay, we're ready to call the vote. Jeanette?
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next item we have is the first reading of ordinance number O-22-10, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administrative. Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and also setting it for a public hearing on July 13th, 2022. And the ordinance reads, this is an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, amending City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Boards, Commission, Committee, Division 1, generally, amending Section 2-166, definition, amending Section 2-167, appointments, amending Section 2-170, qualifications, amending Section 2-172, removal, amending Section 2-173, attendance requirement, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Nunn. City Manager, Mr. Carlisle.
Again, this is as with the other one, this is updating our policies, boards, and procedures and qualifications for this board. Council wants to have any further questions or comments, we'd be happy to address them.
Council, do we have any questions of the attorney or Mr. Carlisle? None? Anybody from the public would like to speak on this? Anybody on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
Anybody on Zoom? Council, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to move approval of ordinance O-2210 with a second reading date of July the 13th.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jeanette, call the roll.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, wait a minute, did I pass this?
O-2211, page 76.
It's number 3.
So the next ordinance that we have is ordinance number O-22-11, and
10.
set in public hearing for July the 13th. Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is an ordinance that reads, an ordinance for the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, amending the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Board, Commission, Committee, Division 2, Code of Ordinance, adopting Section 2-178, Special Magistrate, additional jurisdiction pertaining to lien reductions and appeal, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Nunn. Mr. Carlisle, City Manager.
Yeah, this one is a little bit different. This one came about because of the last hearing that we had, or public comment we had about a resident with a reduction in rate. Council had directed the city attorney, and I'll let him opine if he feels it's appropriate, was to give the special magistrate the ability to hold a hearing to determine if there are facts in place to cause for reduction in a lien amount that has been placed upon the property. And so this ordinance would give the magistrate that authority and set the boundaries for that. Turn on.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Manager. If you recall, when this first came up, the issue was what is an appropriate reduction. And the issue, as I was recommending, is at least if you have it before a special magistrate, the special magistrate will be obligated to hold a hearing, and that hearing would provide evidence and as far as a quasi-judicial hearing, and at least you'll have a record of an appeal. Up to a special magistrate, per what was written before you, they have the authority to approve up to a 25% reduction if it's approved in the second reading. Subsequent to that, if there's any potential appeal, anything above that would have to come to the board. At least at that point, a record has been established, and the only thing that will be appealable to the board would be the percentage. It will not be an entire de novo review how it's written. I do want to add one thing that I do appreciate staff, everyone that has helped me, of course, counsel who's coming and assisting in getting this thing draft. The clerk was instrumental in getting this thing done. Building with Wayne, community service. I've had leisure service come in. A lot of staff has participated in putting this thing together, including council members. So this is a product city made, for lack of a better word. So subject to any question, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Council, does anyone have any questions for the attorney or Mr. Carlisle?
I just have one, and under appeal, it basically says that a flat denial by the special magistrate is not appealable to the city council. So if the special magistrate just says, period, no, I'm not going to reduce it, then there's no appeal of that to the council. Is that normal to not have some appeal process for a decision by a magistrate?
I'm sorry. In this case, it's discretionary act. This is not a normal special magistrate hearing where you're subject to the Florida statute 162, where it is appealable up to the 19th Circuit. This entire process is discretionary. The council doesn't have to do this. This is up to you if you want to do it. That's why it's discretionary. So if how it's written, if council wants to change it, up to council. But how it's written right now, if the individuals do not provide the evidence to the special magistrate, or he's not convinced or she's not convinced that it meets the burden and it's denied, it's done. It's moot, and you owe what's owed within 30 days, I believe. If they do render a decision, then they have X days, I think it's 10 days, to appeal it to the city manager, at which point it does come before you. But like I said, it's not a de novo review. They don't get to argue everything all over again. Just council now gets to review the records and make a decision if that percentage was sufficient, or you want more, or it's fine.
Yeah. I'm all in favor of the special magistrate doing this work, because it requires that an evidence-based hearing be done, and people have to actually prove that they have a reason to get that reduced. So I think it's a good idea to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Nunn?
I guess I just want to reconfirm what Mr. Dodd just said. So in the past, people have disagreed with the ruling of the magistrate and have taken it to the J19C as an appeal process. Is this saying that would not be available to them?
That is correct. That will be under the special magistrate process. We deal with code enforcement, what you're referring to, is under Chapter 162. That does have an appeal process by law to the 19th Circuit. This is something that you, the board, out of your discretionary act, because you don't have to do this, your discretion, you're authorizing the board, the magistrate, the authority to review only up to a certain amount. Okay. And it would not be, even including your actions, at the conclusion of the day when it comes before this board, whatever this board decides, it's done. It's not reviewable, it's not appealable as well, because again, it's a discretionary act. And all those things are certain, if you read, I'm sorry to expound a little bit, but when you read the comments, there's a lot of highlighted areas which, if passed, those sections will be added to the application process, so the applicant knows what rights or no rights they have.
Awesome. So then the appeal that's not available is directly related to fine reduction. Okay. Okay. That's correct. Thank you.
All right. That's it, Mr. Nunn?
Yes, sir.
Mr. McPartland, do you have anything on this?
I guess the one thing, are we looking at a dollar amount of this 25%? Like if the lien was $100,000, the magistrate could write off $25,000?
Well, we authorize them up to 25% if this passes, so. Okay.
And then my other thing is they only get one bite at the apple. If they want to do an appeal up to 25%, they go to the magistrate. If the magistrate gives them the 25%, they don't then get to come to city council and try and get a little bit more off, correct?
No.
That's correct.
All right, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll make a
All right,
motion to approve, ordinance number O-22-11 and set the public hearing July 13, 2022.
Second that.
All right, is there anyone from the public would like to speak on this? Hearing none, we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Jeanette, call the vote.
Vice Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin,
Yes.
and Councilmember Nunn.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, moving on our agenda, the first reading of ordinance number O-22-12. Mr. Anand.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is again, we're amending, I'm sorry, one second. Amending the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance and asking to set a public hearing for July 13, 2022. And the ordinance reads, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, amending the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance, Chapter 26, Building and Building Regulations, Article 2, Building Codes, amending Section 2631, Technical Codes adopted, amending Article 6, Contractors, Division 2, Construction Board, adopting a new Section 26171, Prohibited Activities, adopting a new Section 26172, Causes for Disciplinary Action, repealing Section 26174, Enforcement of Article, amending Section 26175, Penalties and Appeals, amending Section 26197, Powers and Duties, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anand. City Manager, Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, members of council, this is a ordinance specifically to the construction board and enforcement of building codes and licensures of contractors. We had to go through a significant, and Wayne, the work him and Manny did on this is astronomical. And it comes about because of a specific case. So certain things drive certain processes. So this clearly outlines and defines what happens when you don't have a license, if you're building without permits, or if you're falsifying license documents. Everything is spelled out clear and plain as day. So if you get a citation, that work ceases. It's not, well, it's not ambiguous any longer. So I think it's very important, and again, I know Wayne struggled with this, and he put a lot of work in it, and he is here and go over some of the specifics if you need him to. But I think this is a very well-written document. I think it's very concise and very clearly written. And I ask council to consider this and placing it on a public hearing for July 13th.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Carlisle. Council, do you have any questions of staff? No. Mr. McPartlin?
No, sir.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so what's your pleasure, council?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance -O-22-12 and set a public hearing for July 13th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
All right. Seeing none, hearing none. Any further discussion from council? Hearing none. Jeanette, call the vote.
Vice Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin,
Yes.
and Councilmember Nunn.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on in the agenda, this is for resolution number R-22-15, City Board and Committee Meetings format. Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a resolution for the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, repealing Resolution 1238 in its entirety, creating new board categories and procedures, providing for meeting start times and end times for all city boards and committee, providing for a standard agenda format, providing for procedures for public input and public hearings, providing for use of Robert Rules of Order as general guidelines, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's error, providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Anand. Mr. Carlisle, City Manager.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, member of council, this resolution is setting the guidelines for the agendas, policies and procedures for our advisory boards. And as the Councilmember Dodd had mentioned, takes away that ambiguous public input at the end that's not germane to the exact items of the board that the board can't address in any case. So these set up the different, where applicable, all the different procedures are there. Some don't have public hearings, so if it doesn't have a public hearing per se, it doesn't, that portion doesn't apply on that agenda. But it does outline the agenda procedures, the Robert's Rules of Orders, and all the things that we need to have handled at those meetings.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Council, anyone have questions for staff?
Yeah, just a simple one.
Mr. Dodd.
After listening to Councilmember McPartlin at the beginning, I went back and reread that section, and quite frankly, it says here, the amended agenda will reflect that these boards have no public input, period. That could be inferred by some people to think that there's not any public input on agendized items that are brought forth. I don't know whether this is how the city attorney thinks about that, but
We could clean
it
that
just
up.
says no public input. That's it's semantical maybe, but it's something we might want to think about.
I think that could be written a little differently.
Yeah, no, I don't know how to say it, but
Only input relative to what's happening there, right?
Yeah.
No,
On the
no other
agenda,
outside.
yeah.
Public input is only allowed on items on the agenda.
Yeah,
Right.
agenda, something like that, but
Right.
because that way, this is just pretty like, boop, no public input. Now, people say, well, I can't talk about that zoning thing, I can't talk about this.
Yeah, we can address
We'll
that.
get beat up on that, I can read the articles over that one now, so.
It was an oversight that we didn't catch.
So
I appreciate
I would recommend that the city attorney, do some wordsmithing in that particular area to make that clear.
Yeah, if the council would
If it's,
like to
I'll make
make a
that part of
motion
a
to approve it
motion
with
if you
those
need
changes.
to. I move approval of, ordinance R 2215, with the, city attorney, wordsmithing, section 4A2. And set a second public hearing on the 13th of July.
Does that one have a public hearing?
No.
No,
This
that
is
one doesn't
resolution.
have
So
one.
this is approved if we approve it.
Yeah, this
Just
doesn't
doesn't have a second
no,
hearing?
it doesn't.
Okay.
I second that.
Resolution.
Yeah,
All right.
I second that.
All right, so, we have a motion and a second, actually, there are any other comments, because we can add that in there, right? And make sure that
Yeah,
that
we
language
can add
is
it.
cleaned
I mean,
up, so that.
however he wants to, let
Okay,
him.
so you
yeah.
understand what we're asking you to do. Mr.
So what I
Carlisle?
would, if I may, Vice Mayor?
You-
What I would
Mr.
suggest is you said there'd be no public input except for those items that are on the agenda.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Very good.
No
You guys
public
good with
input
that?
except for.
I was going to
agenda
say,
item, yeah.
no public input except during those items on the agenda.
Yeah.
In other words, they don't just to come in and get to talk about the items, they have to speak at each time during each agenda item.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
We can do that.
Mr.
I think that's
McPartlin, do
good.
you have anything on that?
No, sir.
All right, thank you so much. So you guys have, we need to actually finish the vote though, right?
Yeah, public
Yes.
input.
Do we have anyone from the public that would like to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, we're not offering public input.
Hi, Patty Sullivan. Sebastian, just wanted to say thank you because citizen input right now all over our nation is a very important thing. And there have been things that have been handled to stifle public input. So anything that you can do in the communication of this particular area to make it clear that that's not what's happening, I think it'll be very helpful. So thank you for doing that. And even if there may be a little more tweaking, but just to kind of make it where it's you want that input, but it's very specific to certain things. So thank you for doing that.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this? Okay, Mr. Attorney.
Yeah, I just want to add, just to address what you said, The city clerk and I will be conducting some training subsequent, once we pass all these ordinances. So there will be some training, some education when it comes to the committees.
That way, all the board chairs know that, the public have the right for input at that specific time only, and about those specific items. Because what we don't want to continue is, those meetings getting off track with a lot of other things that's not for that.
You're planning on having training not just for the board chairs, but also for the board members on this, are you not?
I will defer that to the clerk, but my understanding is that, yeah, she runs the boards, and we're planning on, training not only the chairs who do control the meeting, control the gavel, but also to let the members, the committee members as well know, what the changes were.
Very good. That's important. Thank you. Let's go ahead and call the vote.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, moving forward in our agenda, item number 13, city attorney matters. I think you probably spoke enough tonight, or you have something else? Okay, go ahead.
I do have one more item I want to mention. I didn't mention it before, but I do want to mention it now. I've been working for, I don't know, about a month now with the new union that's coming on board called IUPA. They filed a while ago, they filed a petition to organize our current bargaining unit under PBA and PEA. And I think we reached today, we reached it already with the PD department, what that bargaining unit is going to look like, and it should be going to a consent election. Now we're, today, before coming here, 15 minutes before coming over here, I believe we reached a tentative agreement. I've been working with Sydney all day this week, going back and forth, and I believe we have already established what the new bargaining unit is going to look like, because there's been a lot of changes. And just let you know, sometime in the near future, I'll be reporting, we'll be having an election.
Right, so the ongoing is with the PEA.
I'm sorry, say again?
So the ongoing is with the PEA, right?
Currently, right now, the bargaining unit is PBA and PEA. There's been a petition that was filed by IUPA to, I guess, we call it raid, but take over the new bargaining unit, and they've met all the requirements by PERC, and PERC has recognized it. So now we're dealing with them to define what the appropriateness of this bargaining unit is going to look like. And once we reach that agreement, which I think we did, well, I know we've reached it for PDs already, and I believe we reached it 15 minutes before coming here at 5:45. So I believe we'll be going on both cases to a consent election sometime in the very near future.
All right, very good. Look forward to hearing the results. Mr. City Manager.
I have two items. One is an old item that's been around for a couple of years now, and that's our COVID. Our rates in Indian River County are going up, so we need to be a little cautious. It's gone up to like 500 from like 10, so our rate is getting up there. So let's touch our face, wash our hands. It's not panic time, but it's time to not just let our guard completely down. Not a lot of hospital stays, but we are seeing I got the report today, there's a big uptake in the last couple of weeks. So just, hand sanitizer, just be careful, and you should be fine. And again, it's not hospital bound, but it doesn't make you feel real well. So take that into account. The other thing is back a few weeks ago, council directed me to look at getting some costs. We had some estimates, some that we had done on the repairs to Fisherman's Landing, some temporary repairs. And, when we looked at some of the minor stuff or some of the stuff that we need to do, we estimated about $50,000. We reached out to builders, and the cost came in. Right now, we're sitting at almost $140,000. What we found was when they went in there and looked, the soils underneath are just not stable enough. If we put the flowable fill in there, there's concern that will just sink away and make a larger problem. It's recommended that we put in helical piles. They're 30-foot tall. Got to drive them in 30 feet, which you know what that means. We're going to have to open up the roof to drive them in. And with even all of that, and putting the helical piles and the beams to support those beams that are there, putting in stainless steel anchors, there's still the two contractors that did provide us quotes all had caveats to we don't know what we're gonna find when we actually get in there and start the work. And one even refused to do the piles because they don't want to do the engineering. We only had one that agreed to the pilings, and KSM has done soil borings around that area, not necessarily on that site. And they agree in their engineering reports that the soils there are soft and not stable. So with that, we're looking at 140 plus, and I just need some direction from council on which way you want me to go, because I can continue this, but that number's not gonna be the end, from what I'm seeing.
Mr. Vice
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Nunn.
So, wow. So with that being said, so let's just say no problems other than the exact problems we know about. And this is $140,000 to simply shore up the back of the building so they can open up the tables there and move them from outside and on the fort and all that. So it's all we're gaining from this, right?
So you would be opening up that 500 square feet that we closed down, that was there, taking away the 580 that she has that we gave her. So you'd be net losing a few square feet by opening that up in the space that she has currently available to her under air. And so I don't know what we would really gain in the use, because that's a lot of money for something that's not a permanent fix.
That was the next part of my question. So this is just to get the back of the restaurant open. This doesn't help anything for the future of that building. Because now if we're going to open up the roof too, that's a lot of possible extra, who knows what we're going to see when we get in. That's a lot of money to spend for not a lot of gain.
Well, I have concerns about we got to cut a hole in the roof to drive a 30-foot piling in there. I don't know what I'm going to find there either, and then patching that up. I just don't see this thing not growing. Look at how much it grew just in our basic engineering and testing we did. Contractor comes out there, says, I can do this. Literally, they're not even guaranteeing that this is all going to work. They looked at high-strength grout. It was too heavy and may settle away from the foundation. And I can go through some of these comments from the contractors, and, they do this every day, and they worked in these soil conditions. No damage material discovered but not listed as proposal repairs. How are we going to address those if they occur? We need to discuss and clarify what's planned in the event this occurs. We don't know. It's labor intensive. There's other problems that may need to. I'm concerned this could get to be, the proverbial money pit.
Go back to part of my original question, the pros and cons of what does this do for the city, and I feel like there's a lot of cons. If I go back to our last council meeting, we discussed this. Councilmember Dodd said, we're going to open up a can of worms and it's going to grow and grow and grow, and it's going to end up with us closing this restaurant down, closing that building down, because we're going to find it's just full of problems. And I don't see how we can open up holes in the floor, holes in the ceiling, spend $140,000 to achieve nothing. I just don't know what, I have a problem spending that kind of money if it was going to solve the problems with the building and it was going to fix the back, and, we had to put a new roof on it, say, even down the road, and that was all the building needed, to be one thing, but we already know that's not all the problems the building has. I'm just concerned. Is the current table situation affecting the true overall, the tenant to that aspect? Is it really affecting her overall money with the tables the way they are? It sounds like we have more space now, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, so I had the city engineer go out to do measurements of what the space we closed off and the space that we provided. And so the space that we closed off, I'm just talking about under air, was 512 square feet, and the air-conditioned space that's open now is 586 square feet. There were no outside seating tables, so the outside seating tables allowed her to have another 540 square feet there, plus or minus. So her leased space for seating eatery was 522 square feet. The space, including the outdoor seating, that is now 1,140 square feet.
Wow.
And so I can't answer how that affects her business, except for she has more seats available now than she had. You know,
Well, but we still have to be fiscally responsible here in the city and in our position. And it was difficult for me, first of all, to take $50,000 of taxpayers' money to fix up one business. I don't think I can support anything going forward with that. So that's just all I have to say on it. So, Mr. Dodd.
Okay, the space that's currently used by Krabby Bill's, is that space still within the engineering specifications that's safe for
yes,
occupation?
that's a safe space. It's on a concrete slab. The outdoor seating's on an outdoor concrete patio and an outdoor deck. So that seating, you know, is stable. We're not concerned about any safety issues there.
Well, I'm going to say basically the same thing that I said the last time. The $140,000 is going to be $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 before this thing's over with. I mean, I'm not a magician. It's just that we're trying to take a building that we need to tear down probably and make it usable. And every time we find that we fix one little thing, we're going to find one more thing that has to be fixed, one more thing that has to be fixed. The ultimate solution to this, which I know we have had a hard time discussing, is to move the restaurant out of there and fix the building completely the way it needs to be done. Make some determinations as to how that needs to be done, no matter what it means. I mean, if it means demolishing the building and starting again and hiring some people who can make it look, build it back and make it look as good as it looks from an old time perspective, some things like that. That doesn't seem to be a solution that many people are interested in. I would say that the next best thing for us to do is to continue to isolate the non-safe parts of the building, let the restaurant continue to operate until the end of its lease period. And at that point in time, then we fix the building. And I know that's 2024. But at that point in time, then we have to fix, then we do what we have to do, and we just don't spend any money we don't have to spend.
Great.
I mean, if the back part of it becomes like the old ice house and starts to fall in the river, then we're stuck spending money on it. But still, I just don't think, I don't think we're seeing the top dollar here. No. So I think it's time for us to, look at this from the perspective of what the impact of it's going to be on the city. And I think that the city should notify the owner of Krabby Bill's that they're going to operate in the space they currently have until the end of their lease period. And secondly, they need to be notified that if something happens in the building, an area they are currently occupying is deemed unsafe, that we will close that part of the building down. Because I can't guarantee you that canopy out front that they have tables under might at some point in time be deemed unsafe. I mean, that's entirely possible that takes place. So I just think we have to just draw the line and do it. It's not going to be popular. It's a great fish house. They have a great chef. They make a great fish sandwich, but we have no choice as a city to probably take this stand on it, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think moving forward, spending more money, that makes us fiscally irresponsible, and I'm not willing to stand for that. Mr. McPartland.
I kind of basically agree with Mr. Dodd at the last meeting time we discussed this. As soon as they opened up the floor, I just didn't realize it was going to turn into like beach restoration, putting more stuff on there and it'll just wash away. I think ultimately I'm in agreement with Mr. Dodd. We just need to make it to the end of this lease period and decisions need to be made. Maybe we can start them earlier. What we want to do with the building. You know, do we want to refab it, fully or partially? But there's no way that building could be restored with a business actually operating in there, especially one that's involved with food and preparation of food.
Right. Thank you so much, sir.
One more thing. One more thing I would like to add, and I hear a lot of people say, "Oh my God, it's a historic structure." Okay, I get that if you lived here 25, 30 years, you've always seen the building there, and it feels very historic to Sebastian. It is a centerpiece of our working waterfront, but our working waterfront is not the building. Our working waterfront are the docks with the fishermen and all of that. This is just one piece of that. And I know it's an integral piece, but this isn't the working waterfront. The working waterfront is what's happening on the river. We can always look at building a new building, like the city manager said, that looks like an old building, but this building was a pieced together auto shop, restaurant, everything else. This wasn't a fish house for the past 100 years. So I know we feel it, and we love the Krabby Bill's restaurant that's located in the building, and I know the food's amazing, we've all said it, but this isn't about, for me, it's about safety, it's about fiscal responsibility, and as much as we love the building is not a historical structure that's registered because it doesn't meet the criteria. So I think we need to do what's best for safety, for finances, and move forward. I'm not for spending $140,000. That's going to do nothing except put money that we're going to have to redo again anyways.
Mr. Dodd.
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor, Council, this is an important issue, and we'll be talking about it at many future meetings unless we're very clear. So I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we direct the city manager and city attorney to notify the leaseor that they're going to have occupation of the space they currently have until the end of their lease period, unless that space is deemed to be unsafe. At that time, they will have to vacate whatever space is deemed to be unsafe.
Second.
All right.
Sounds good.
Mr. Carlisle, did you hear all that?
I did, but my concern is, can we make motions under my matters?
Oh, no, but here's what we're going to do. This is the consensus of the council based on what we said, and you need to bring something back to us for our next meeting.
So, I will.
Okay, so you'll bring us the letter that you're going to send at our next meeting.
Yes.
I don't want to. I tell you my concern. I don't want to get in this social media battle. It is no longer a battle. This isn't a debate between us and the restaurant, period. It's not a debate anymore. This is what's going to happen. And I don't think that there needs to be anybody think that there is a debate that's going on here. This is what's going to happen. So if you're concerned, Manny, about making a motion under the city manager's matters, I know we've done this before. I don't know if it truly is bad on parliamentary procedure, but
if you want to do it by consensus, that's fine, but then again, you're going to have to open it to the public as well before you make a decision, in my opinion.
okay. So we'll bring this back on the next agenda. Is that
correct?
No, you can do it now by consensus. If you all want to bring it up now, consensus, I think there's 3 here and there's 1 on Zoom. Okay. You can go ahead and address it. But my point was that if you do address it, you do bring it up as a council to address now. You're going to have to open it up to the public as well before you run your final decision.
Very good. We can do that. So do we have a consensus on what Mr. Dodd said? Mr. McPartland, are you on board with that?
Yes.
Yes.
okay, I'm going to withdraw my motion to make sure it's clear that that's being done. All right.
Okay. So now we're going to move forward.
Okay, and we're going to provide we're providing a consensus to the city manager and city attorney that we want to take those steps, notify them.
So it's a consensus that we should start working on a design build or a process?
I'm sorry?
Would it also be the consensus of council then to look at a design build, start a design build process?
No, I'm not, until the end of this lease, period, that building needs to stand there exactly like it is.
We wouldn't do anything to the building, but we can start the process of what's going to go onto the building. If you wait 2 years, it's going to be 4 years.
I think we need to talk about that separate from this.
I'll bring that up as another agenda item.
And I think I heard, maybe it was Mr. McPartland one time talking about, getting a committee. I mean, there's a lot of things we need to talk about when it comes to that. I'm personally leery of having a construction firm give me a design and build on something like that. I would rather have a restoration architect come in and tell us what can be done to that to make it historic and so forth. We've got till March of 2024 to deal with that. We don't need to deal with that today.
Yeah.
We have many other things that the city needs to be taking care of right now before we start writing RFPs out for a design and build on that building when we can't do anything until 2024.
Okay.
Right, but what we need to do is start planning financially for down the road because we know that's coming.
Yeah, but let's
I-
worry about our sanitary to sewer conversion in the CRA, and let's worry about our stormwater ditches.
Well, yeah,
Let's do some things about those before we move forward with another design build project that
Right.
maybe won't get done.
Is there anyone from the public would like to speak on this issue? Yes, sir. Please come to the mic, give us your name and where you live.
My name's Terry McGinn from Miller Drive in Sebastian. The last time this was discussed, I sat in my seat squirming and tried to raise my hand, but there was no public comment. I was in this business once, rehabbing government buildings for ammunition production out in the Midwest. And I can tell you, it never goes well. And Mr. Dodd is 100% right, Councilman Dodd is 100% right. But my suggestion, which may not mean anything, is you should buy out the lease, help them find another building immediately and shut it down. And you should demolish it because there is no way that you're going to get away without spending less than the $1 million that Mr. Dodd said, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor, may I respond to that?
Yes, sir, you may.
Okay, we have tried, the city manager has tried numerous times to work a deal with the people who own that restaurant. They have refused. So right now, basically it's a business deal. We tried to work with you, you said no. Here's what's gonna happen, all right? I have no, and I don't think anybody would have any objective for us to do whatever we can to help those people. We're not trying, but we've tried. He's tried dealing with them.
I agree, but the best help you could give them is to help them find another place.
Well, he's made that offer. He's made that offer to them.
It's become so emotional.
Okay.
My last statement is there are so many places we need to spend money.
Yeah. I just want everybody out there to understand, because what you said was a perfectly logical thing. I want everybody out there to understand, all those people are going to wear those orange hats in this meeting.
Well, this goes on the record.
That we have tried to do that.
Yeah.
The city has tried to work with the owner of that restaurant to do something and been turned down at every stage.
You could build them a brand new restaurant across the street and it will cost less than that building's going to cost.
There's many things that can be done. They have to be a willing partner, and they have not been a willing partner.
You can't condemn it.
I can't force them to be a willing partner.
Okay.
We can terminate their lease, but we can't force them to be a willing partner.
Thank you. I made my feelings known.
Yeah, but I think it's clearly important for us, Mr. Carlo, is to send a message to clearly let the owners over there know what the city intends to do. It's very important that we do that, and I thank you. Yes, ma'am, you have a comment. Your name, please?
Karen Jordan, Sebastian. Hi, y'all. Hope everything is going well. Did we expect to talk about this tonight?
No.
No, and I'm really glad we did. I came to Sebastian 2 years ago, so I don't really know Krabby Bill's. The idea of it being historical, I think it's a great restaurant. But because more and more is less safe, I don't want to go to it. Doesn't matter how good it is. We, the city of Sebastian, bought this property with a grant. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I'm not a finance person. I'm barely a housewife. Do we owe money
ma'am, I'm
to them?
sorry. Make sure you direct everything to the chair. If
Do we
need
owe
someone
money?
else,
Well, typically it's the city manager that gets the questions answered. And I said this, do we have money that we still are paying on that? I don't know the answer to that, and Fred's not here.
No.
We don't.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we outright own it because of the grant.
Correct.
Okay. Can the city just dump the building and not lose any money? In other words, if we were to go to Krabby Bill's and say, hey, you want this piece of property? You can buy it for $200,000 or whatever the price.
No, we can't do that.
Why? Because of the grant?
Correct. We can't sell it.
That's one thing I'd like to know is what the stipulations of the grant were. Because it's a beautiful place. It will enhance Sebastian like no other location. Well, all of them along there. But I would like to see, I thought his idea was great. Last time we spoke in city council, and I'm not watching my time, so please tell me. The last time we spoke about this at Krabby, and there was a whole bunch of Krabby Bill's people. Oh, you are here, sorry. Krabby Bill's, you had discussed the fact that they had not talked, the attorneys had gotten to a point where we hadn't talked. I don't remember you ever saying that. And I never heard them. In fact, I remember them saying that it wasn't, I don't know. I want to say I heard them say that it was y'all or whoever that wouldn't talk. I think your idea of sending them a letter is a great idea. It has to be done today, not tomorrow. No, tomorrow's good. What would happen if something really bad happened to that structure? And monetarily, we are responsible. We don't even owe a dime on it. And I don't know. The grant makes a big difference. And I just don't. I would like to have someone explain the grant. Or you could probably tell me, Karen, go look it up. And researching is very hard in city and council and state and running voting. God, there's so much. How do you expect to remember all this? So I love Krabby Bill's. I say that I've only been there once since this whole discussion that came up, but I don't think we should put any money into it. Krabby Bill's, hey, pay me $500,000 for it and you fix it yourself.
Right.
I don't know what I'm saying there's solutions, just like what the gentleman before me brought up, that something can be done without having that discourse so torn. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And just for information, for us, this is not about Krabby Bill's. This is about the building that we have. This is about Fisherman's Landing. It has nothing to do with Krabby Bill's. So all this stuff and everything, people are talking about Krabby Bill's, Krabby Bill's. This is a business deal. This is what we have to do now, is move forward with handling this. So that's all I would say. Mr. Dodd,
Well, first of all, the lady who was just up here, please don't ever talk to her about yourself as being just a housewife. If it wasn't for housewives, the world would fall apart. Secondly, the grant money that we purchased that with had some stipulations to it. And none of those stipulations required that we have a restaurant in there. But they did have stipulations on the size of the restaurant, the number of seatings. They're not supposed to have a waiter or waitress go to tables and take orders and bring food to the table. It's supposed to be basically a window service where you have places where people can take their food and eat it. Those restrictions are in that grant process. The grant does require that we have a museum in there dedicated to the working waterfront. And right now that museum, I believe, has been emptied out for safety, right? Yeah. So but it does require we put that back in there. We have an obligation under that grant to protect that building and to protect the citizens. We have an obligation to the citizens of Sebastian to make sure that we take steps that are necessary so nobody gets hurt in that building. God forbid that something fall and hurt somebody in that building. And that's why the building department went down there when they first got that report and condemned parts of it and roped it off, was to stop that from happening. So we've taken all the steps we can take. Mr. Sweeney, the attorney for the leaseor, or the leasee, get those terms going around, has had conversations with our city attorney. It's just that we've attempted to do some things and it hasn't been fruitful. And I don't personally see that it will be fruitful until we take this step. So that's the whole thing that has to take place. Nobody in the city, staff or up here, is interested in being punitive towards any business owner in this city, but we have no choice at this point in time to take some action on this.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Mr. Nunn, do you have anything else?
The last thing, I wanted to restate something Ed said earlier. This isn't up for debate. This isn't up for discussion. This is the city, the owner of a building, making a decision on what's best for the building and what's best for the city. I know there are some people that will try to destroy us in the social media over it, and well, so be it. It is what it is. I will remind you, Krabby Bill's has been in the building since 2014, so 8 years today, roughly. they're not a historic restaurant. They're not a restaurant like Waldo's that's been there for 100 years or whatever Waldo's has been there. The point I make is there are opportunities for them to still make plenty of money and have an amazing restaurant and food. It's just not going to be in that building after the lease because that building is an issue. So just simply that.
Mr. McPartland.
I look forward to future conversation at the next meeting.
Okay, very good. So, having no more, communication there, so, I think the next thing, Mr. Carlisle, you have something?
Two clarifications Manny wanted, and the one I want, if you want me to address the grant issues that Ms. Jordan asked about, I'd be happy to give you the points on that of how that works if we tear the building down or close it down if you would like.
Right, so you can do that with her on a separate date and time or
Sounds
something.
good.
Yeah.
Maybe if when you come back at the next meeting, we could talk about the covenant process again. I know we did it a few months ago, but people all forget.
Okay.
If I can, Mr. Vice Mayor, I do have one point of clarification for this letter. I think I'm hearing it indirectly, but I'm not hearing it directly for us. So the letter that we're going to be sending out is obviously to them, letting them know that you stay in the building through the end of her lease, and I believe what was not said, there's no intent of continuing the lease after that point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. Thank you.
All right. So having no more further discussion, Jeanette? The public comment, did I close public comment yet? I closed public comment, I'm sorry.
Well,
No, go ahead, we're gonna allow you, I'll allow you, with the board's permission, we'll allow it.
Hi, I'm Tony from Sebastian. My question is that whether they have a Tuesday afternoon that they have people in or a Christmas party, if someone gets hurt, maimed, or killed, who pays for that person? The city or the owner of? Then absolutely unacceptable. We should not put people in any harm's way for $1 or $1 million. Unacceptable.
All right. Correct.
This has been put, and for some attorney that would come along, it has been boasted for years what bad shape this is in. And we just keep letting them go. I just hope no one gets hurt.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. We're gonna go ahead and call the vote now. There's no vote?
No vote.
By consensus? Okay, good. All right, thank you so much for keeping me on track. I get distracted very easily. Thank you, Ed Dodd. Okay, city clerk matters. What? Okay. Next, Mayor Hill is not on Zoom, so he's not here. I have nothing further. Mr. McPartland.
Well, I thought we had a very good workshop last week, and all the county commissioners and their staff came out, and I imagine we're collecting all the questions, and they'll be brought back before us at a future date. I was wondering if there was some consensus within the council, if we could maybe get a presentation to us from the Sebastian River Improvement District, if they could come out, do a presentation based on their history of a special district, their statutory powers, their district responsibilities, and how the proposed annexation may impact, their assessments.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, Mr. Nunn. Sounds good. That was for us, for the audience. That was for us. Please refrain from comments at this point. Thank you. Okay. Is that it for you, Mr. McPartland?
Yes, that's it.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Mr. Nunn.
I've talked enough tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to skip Ed Dodd. No, go ahead. Yeah, you don't have
So-
a mic.
I'm sorry, my mic's not on. Thank you, Barbara. That there was the beginning of some cooperation between the entities on this. So,
I can give you an
is it,
update.
Mr. Swyfer, can the city manager say something?
No.
Oh, okay. No, you can't talk.
No, Mr. Carlisle, go ahead.
So I do have a meeting set up with myself, the Graves brothers, Jeff Bass, and Jason Brown. I believe it's July 5th, to start the conversation.
Okay, good. I mean, I was pleased to hear that, and I was very pleased it was in the newspaper so people can read it.
Right.
All right, so thank you.
Let them know that we are communicating.
Yes.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay, so we're at that point of the night. There being no further business before the council, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.